Got no time to write? Well, finding time to write, work, and balance life can sometimes be a challenge, and many times it can be discouraging. And I've got some help for you. So in this video, we're going to talk about 19 proven time management tips to help you get your time back. What's up, guys? Michael Laron here with Author Level Up, helping you write world-class stories better and faster. And I create these writing videos because I believe that each of you has Stephen King level talent, and you just need help unlocking it. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and click that little bell, ding, 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 to get notifications every time I have a new writing video. And this video is part of my new organization series in Author Level Up, organization series season, where I talk about how to organize virtually every area of your writing life. So if you haven't checked the other videos in this series, be sure to check those by clicking the YouTube card above my head or in the link in the video description. So let's just jump into the tips here. Tip number one is to be ruthless with your time. So it's super important to be able to know how to say no, to be unapologetic when something doesn't serve you or doesn't serve your interests, and just don't apologize. Just if an opportunity comes along and you don't have time for it, say no. If an opportunity comes along and it's not something that is part of your strategic vision as a writer, say no. Tip number two is to see where your time is going. So this is probably the most common time management tip out there, but that is to do a time audit. So sit down and actually write down what you're spending your time doing. What are you doing from 5 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the evening? What are you doing from 6 o'clock in the evening to 7 o'clock in the evening? And this is super tedious, but the point of this is when you can actually see where your time is going, you can actually see where you're wasting your time, and then you can start to develop a plan to attack that accordingly. Tip number three is to learn exactly how long it takes you to do things. So I talked about doing a time audit, and that's so you can see what you're wasting your time on. But this tip is about seeing where that time is going and how long it's taking you to do things. So one of the coolest things and most important things that I ever did early on in my career was I actually sat down and mapped out to the minute how long it took me to do everything in my novel, Android Paradox. So I learned exactly how long it took me to write a novel, to outline a novel, to edit a novel, in different drafts, and to work with a cover designer down to the very minute. And so when I did that, I actually had a baseline, and I knew exactly how many hours it would take me to be able to write a novel. And that information was extremely useful because it allowed me to see, okay, I'm spending this much time outlining, and I'm spending this much time editing. And hold on a second, I'm spending this much time outlining, but when I actually sit down to write, I'm actually deviating from the outline this percentage of the time, so why am I outlining? Which leads me to tip number four, which is what I just talked about, which is use the data that you have, right? So data is often a problem in the writing community because we don't often have data, and we most often have to create our own data, right? And so when I actually mapped out Android Paradox, I actually created data points. And so when you do this, just look at your data. What is the data telling you? And how do you marry that with your creative passion? That is super important. And then if you can do that in the lens of time management, then you'll streamline your creative process, which will help you make better books faster. Tip number five is to invest in the right tools. Now, I say this until I'm blue in the face, and you can probably recite what I'm going to say right along with me. The tool that you buy is the most important decision you'll make in your career. The tools that you buy are critically important. You know, when I was just starting off in my career, I tell this story all the time, you know, I couldn't afford the $35 fee that Scrivener charged. I mean, it was super expensive for me at the time. I was in a job that I was overburdened with student debt. I had all sorts of other expenses. I just graduated from college, and I had to work overtime, and I had to starve myself and sell things that I owned to be able to afford Scrivener. But Scrivener has been the best thing that I've ever bought in terms of my writing career. That $35 that I paid for itself over and over and over again in terms of efficiency, in terms of productivity, just in terms of the fact that I don't have to pay a formatter. I mean, it paid for itself very quickly. So just know that, spend some time demoing the different writing apps. And if you haven't seen them, I've done videos on the best writing apps for Mac, and the best writing apps to consider, paid and free for you, so that you can kind of get some samplings of apps that you like, and figure out which one you do like. And when you find that perfect love, so to speak, buy it, and learn how to use it. Invest your resources in learning the keyboard shortcuts, how to do some of the advanced techniques, right? And internalize those, because that also will help you save time when you're writing your novel. Tip number 6 is to automate whenever you can. Now, some people hear this and they say, well, automation is expensive, but it's actually not expensive. There are a number of things that you can do to help you save steps and save time. So perfect example of this is the Automator on Mac desktop, right? So it will perform a sequence of steps for you automatically. All you have to do is tell it what to do. So you could do this to help you back up your work. You could do this to help you open up a program. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can use Automator for. Tip number 7 is one that many of you won't be ready for yet, but I want you to at least think about it. And that's outsourcing. So hiring someone to help you with the day-to-day tasks of your writing business. Now, a lot of people, they immediately start thinking employees, and that is something that a lot of people have considered, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that do hire part-time help or even full-time help to help them with their writing business. But start small, right? So it could be as simple as hiring an editor to help you with your videos, like I do, or someone to help you with your social media blog posts, or there's all sorts of different things that you can hire editors for. Every writer's business is going to be a little bit different, but just know that outsourcing is something that will ultimately save you time. Now, you're going to have to spend some money to do it, so you want to make sure that you're making enough money to be able to support outsourcing on a regular basis. But when you are at the point in your career when you need it, it's going to help save you a lot of time. Tip number 8 is one that I think a lot of you will benefit from, is using a calendar. So if you don't use a calendar, if you happen to be a calendar type person, use a calendar. It definitely does help. So if it's a calendar on your email client, that can help you. If it's a physical planner calendar, I think that's fine too. But just having something that will help you plan your day, I think is incredibly helpful. Tip number 9 is to set aside some time regularly to see how you're doing from a time management perspective. So setting aside 30 minutes a month or 30 minutes every other month, right? To just look at your processes and look at where you're spending your time, look at that time audit, and do a gut check and just ask yourself, how is my time management going? Are there areas where I'm spending too much time on? Are there areas where I'm not spending enough time doing a certain task? Am I ready for outsourcing? Am I ready to consider another level of automation? And do this regularly. And I found that when I do this on a regular basis, it helps me stay in tune with whether the systems that I've created are actually working. Tip number 10 is to be flexible, right? So your day and your schedule today is not going to look anything like your schedule 6 months or 9 months from now. Let me give you a perfect example of this. So when I first had my daughter, when she was a newborn, I had to really struggle to find time to write because, you have to feed your kid every 2 hours, right? And you don't have any sleep. It's just an extremely difficult time at the beginning of your child's life when you are a writer and you need to make sure your child is taken care of and you need to get to work. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your spouse. It's a challenge. So my writing schedule when my daughter was an infant looked completely different when she turned 1. Right? When things were a lot more stable, not a whole lot more, but a lot more stable, right? And the family patterns changed. And now, as my daughter is a toddler, my schedule is completely different. So I've had to adapt, in these 6 to 8 month intervals to make sure that I'm staying on track and continuing to find those times to write and making sure that I've optimized my schedule. So I know that the same is true for you as well. What your schedule looks like today is not going to be the same 6 months from now, and you just have to be willing to adapt. Tip number 11 is the one that you guys know I love, and that is writing on my phone. So writing on my phone has helped improve my writing output by 40%. And I've done the math on it. And the reason for that is because it helps me claim back time that I actually never had to write in the beginning. So I talk all the time about how I've written in line for checkout at the grocery store. I've written in the back seat of an Uber car. I've written while waiting to be seen by my doctor. I get these pockets of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And it's just amazing how those add up over the period of a day, and then multiply that over the period of a week, and then over the period of a month, and then over the period of a year, and you have a tremendous potential to get a lot of words in with not a whole lot of time sacrifice. Tip number 12 is one I think that we need to have a serious conversation on, because I know that many of you have fallen into this trap, and I want to try to get you out of this little bear trap that I think it ensnares so many beginning artists of all shades. But let's talk about it. Okay, so you need to reframe your thoughts. Okay, so when you start off writing, it's not uncommon to have this thought that you need 4 hours on a Saturday to be able to write, and that if you don't get these huge blocks of time to write, you will be able to get nothing done. Right? I used to believe this all the time when I first started off writing. I need 2 hours to be able to write that next chapter, or I need 3 hours to be able to write that next chapter. And then something will happen and life will strike, and then maybe you only have 1 hour, and then you get all sad because you can't write for 1 hour, and then you don't do anything in that hour. I use those words harshly because that was me. That was me. But here's the thing, you don't need these huge blocks to write. And in fact, if you're waiting on these huge blocks to write, and you've got a family, and you've got a job, you're not going to get anything done, right? The best way to reframe this is not to think about those huge blocks, but to realize that the majority of your writing is probably going to end up happening in the blocks where you've got little pockets of time. So what I want you to reframe and think about is not, okay, when is this next huge block going to come where I can write? I want you to start thinking, okay, I've got 5 minutes here, I've got 10 minutes here, I've got 15 minutes here. How much can I write? Tip number 13 is one that I alluded to, and that is to try dictation. So I know a lot of you may not like the idea of writing on your phone, and dictation is a great alternative. I actually dictated an entire series of fiction that actually does very well, and that's my last Dragonlord series. And I've actually done an entire YouTube series on dictation. It's one of my more popular series. I did it very early on my YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out by clicking the link in the YouTube card or in the video description to learn the basics of dictation if you want to be getting started with that. So for the last round of tips, I talked about how to maximize your writing time. Now let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about some things that will completely wreck your writing time if you let them. All right, so let's talk about email. Tip number 14 is to get a hold on your email inbox. Email runs our lives, whether we like it or not. I don't know that I like it a whole lot, but I haven't found a better alternative. An email, it's one of the greatest communication tools ever created. It is one of the greatest distraction tools ever created too. Email will just chip away at your attention. And so finding ways to maximize your usage of email and be an email ninja, I think is important. So I've developed some techniques on that, and I actually have a video coming up on that next about email management. So depending on when you're watching this, be sure to watch that video on how to manage your email effectively. But email is, it will become a problem at some point in your career. If it's not yet today, the more successful you become, it will become a problem. And the good news is that it's not very hard to know how to manage your email. The bad news is it does take some mindset shifts and some doing things differently. All right, tip number 15 has to do with ebook formatting. So when I started Author Level Up, I actually started Author Level Up doing formatting videos because that was something that I found that I could teach, because it was something that took up a lot of my time early on in my career, learning how to format an ebook, learning how to format a paperback. Oh my God, paperback formatting, especially in Microsoft Word. I mean, it just was brutal. just absolutely brutal. And I found that the best way to help me save time with formatting was to create templates for myself so that I did all of the work up front in formatting a book, and then all of my subsequent books kind of gained the benefit from all that work I did up front. So by creating that template, create that template, figure out what it looks like for you, because it's hard to say how to do it because many of you are using different things to format. If you use Word, use a different form. You're going to use a different format. If you use Scrivener, there's a certain template that you can do in Scrivener. Many of you may use Vellum, which makes this tip irrelevant. But using a format template, if you don't have Vellum, will just save you so much time and so much effort when you're actually formatting your book, because that will eat up your time. People don't realize how much time formatting will eat up if you've never done it before. Tip number 16 is to use website themes. So for the love of Pete, for the love of all that is holy in the world, I try to stop people from hand coding their websites. I don't know why people still choose to do that in this day and age. It's amazing how many people I talk to. They say, I know that there's all these great website templates out there, but I bought a book on coding for dummies, and I just want to learn how to code my website. Don't do that. That's why people created website themes. I mean, that's why WordPress exists, right? There is an entire economy of people who make money by selling very cheap themes that you can buy, where it's literally 2 or 3 clicks to install it, and you have an actual website design. I use Elegant Themes, and I use Divi, and I'll drop a link to that in the comments if you want to check it out. It is an affiliate link, but they've got a great deal where you can actually you can pay a big fee. I think it's like $250 or $300 or something like that. But then you actually get access to their entire theme of WordPress themes. So if you ever want to change your theme on your website, you can do it, and it will literally take you no time to do. Divi is awesome, and all of Elegant Themes' themes are great, and they will save you a tremendous amount of time. Tip number 17 is to develop a system for taxes that you can use to track all of the information that you need to track at the end of the year. So there's 2 ways to do this, right? At least here in the United States. I don't know about other countries, but I imagine they're probably pretty similar. You can track your taxes and your royalties and your expenses as you go throughout the year, little by little, or you can just wait till the end of the year and have a near panic and anxiety attack when it's time to send all your information to the government. I highly recommend that you find a way to track all of this stuff as you go. Unfortunately, I'm going to have some videos on this later on in the organization series. Tip number 18 is not to fret illnesses or injuries. So when you get sick, sometimes, you're working on a project and you're in the middle of a chapter, or, you set a deadline for yourself, and, when you get sick, it feels like you're not going to hit it, right? Or life strikes, or, just things happen in life, right? But I'm primarily talking about illnesses, because I think people think, well, I'm sick, now I got to do all this catch up and so on and so forth. And it's not always really necessary, right? We make goals and we make timelines for a reason. And I think that's super important. And if you have developed a goal for yourself, just simply to finish your book, good for you, because most people don't do that, right? But if you get sick, just take care of yourself, right? Don't beat yourself up, because you're gonna have to take some time off writing probably, or you're gonna get less words in, right? But if you focus on taking time to take care of yourself, it's actually gonna save you more time. Whereas if you push yourself to write and to continue pushing yourself while you're sick and think you can push through it, you're actually going to get sicker, or you're going to be less productive, and that's going to actually take you more time, and it's going to cost you more time and more energy and more money when you could just take care of yourself, make sure you get better, and you'll be fine. Tip number 19 is procrastination. Now, I'm not recommending you procrastinate, but procrastination is real, right? And I think that everybody has to make certain decisions in their career in terms of when they're going to dedicate themselves to writing, because I think that consistency is the most important thing you can do in your writing career. Consistency breeds success. Being consistent in putting out books, being consistent in getting the words down, being consistent with your brand, all these things will help you be more successful. But procrastination will stop you from being consistent. And so you just have to have come to Jesus moments with yourself throughout your career. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of being super harsh on yourself when it comes to procrastination, because maybe there are times when you do need to just take breaks from your manuscript, right? I think that you have to make that decision for yourself, but you just have to understand that this is going to keep coming up over and over and over in your writing career. It's never going to go away. So developing strategies and mindsets to deal with that is going to be pretty important. And what would a massive tip video be without a bonus tip? So tip number 20 is, if you want some more tips on time management, check out my book, Be a Writing Machine. It's one of my most popular books on writing for writers, and it's how to beat writer's block, how to write better and faster and smarter, and be prolific. And it's got a lot of tips on time management, a lot of tips on procrastination, a lot of tips on beating writer's block that I think a lot of you will find helpful. So be sure to watch the rest of the videos in my organization series. Be sure to subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.
Perfect.